Okay, welcome. It's good to see you again. Back here for lesson 4 of our economics unit. We've been dealing with a lot of different things as far as our economics unit goes. And the last 2 sessions or lessons, I hope you really were able to grasp, especially understanding your resources, that it's not just about money. And the economy is not just about money, it's about time, it's about your abilities, it's about your health. There's a lot that goes into the whole idea of resources. But now we're breaking away from the personal aspect to some extent, because we are going to be talking about purchasing power, the cost of things, goods and services and things and jobs that we will be able to get into later on. But we're going away from the principles of it to actual terminology. So this is really important. So there's a lot of terms that we're going to be going over. So when we get to comparative economics next week, talking about the different types of economic systems, we will be using these terms and you will need to understand them. Okay, so there are major terms and then there are ideas below those terms to help you understand all the different aspects of those terms. Now we're not going into them in depth. This is an overview. But you will have a general understanding of retail and wholesale and all that kind of stuff when we get done with this discussion and how this comes into play. Okay, and one of the things that we talked about in the past 2 lessons was your resources, and the last one deals with your assets, dealing with what is liquid, what you can actually use as a medium of exchange for a good or service. And so that's where these terms come into play, basically, is dealing with your assets. And the first term that we're going to look at here is cost, the cost of a good or a service. We break down our expenditures basically into expenditures for goods or services. So cost deals what resources you exchange from your assets for goods or services. Now, when I first moved here and we were building our first house, one of the things, there was a couple of us young couples within our church, like 3 of us, and we were actually getting services for services. I would go and help them with one aspect of the building, and then they would come and help me on my house. And so there is that type of exchange too, and it deals with a cost there, but that's dealing with time and actual labor. But this is just dealing with what you would use as far as your resources to exchange, what makes it the cost that it is. So there are different parts of this that you have to understand what goes into determining the cost of something. And the first one is the economic cost. So this is what you would think of when you think of costs. How much money does it take for me to buy that? So the value placed on goods and services reflected in the amount exchanged. So the actual economic cost of something is what you actually handed over to get that good or service. It could say this, it's $25.99. But you actually only paid $20.99. So the actual economic cost was not $25, it was actually $20. Economic cost is actually the amount that you actually pay for that good or service. The next one is opportunity cost. So there's one thing that you have to realize is when you make a choice to buy something, you are actually limiting your opportunities in the future. So one of the examples I like to give, so if you look on your slide here, there is a picture of a nice steak, and let's say that steak costs $19.99 or $19.50, and it comes with steak fries and things like that, maybe a blooming onion if you're at Outback, or you have this, let's say that's a double cheeseburger on the side for $5. So let's say I have this choice, all right, this choice between spending, I have $20 bill in my pocket, so I can go and I can buy this steak for $20, and I love steak, okay? Or I can go over here to McDonald's, which would be much faster, and go through the drive-thru. Well, not our one in KL, but anyway, you go through the drive-thru and you buy this double quarter pounder with cheese for $5. Here's my choice. Do I pay $5 or do I pay the $19.50 for the steak? Because I have money for both. So I make a choice, and then I decide what the economic cost is. I take my $5 out and I buy that double cheeseburger, double quarter pounder with cheese. When I take that $5 and I pay that, I now only have $15 left. Therefore, I cannot go buy that steak now because I only have $15 and it's $19.50. So therefore, this opportunity, and I bought this, I've now lost this opportunity to buy the steak. Because I paid the $5 for this, now I only have $15 left. I cannot buy the steak for $19.50. That's called opportunity cost. So anytime I buy something, I take the opportunity away from something else. And a lot of you were trying to put this into practice and thinking wisely about this on the historical trip, even though it didn't play out well because we had to leave early. But you were thinking, hey, if I spend all my money now, I may come in contact with something later on that I really want. And if I spend it all here, I've lost that opportunity to buy that. So you were trying to plan it out so you would not sacrifice opportunity costs for this economic cost here. And that's basically what it's called, opportunity costs. So every time we make a purchase, we've now lost the opportunity for something else. Now, what actually goes into the value of cost? Well, there's one thing off the top, and that's called subjective. All right, the subjective value. And that is the value that we as consumers determine by the value because of the price that we're willing to pay. So, yeah, I'm willing to pay $5 for that double cheeseburger. So subjectively, to me, that double cheeseburger is worth $5. If you tell me that double cheeseburger is $10, I may not buy it. It may not be that valuable to me. All right? So that is something you got to keep in mind. Subjective value is only determined when price or exchange happens. My money goes for that item. Value subjectively has now been placed on that. So it's only worth what you're willing to pay. And we see this more on things like eBay or I forget that other venue. But anyway, you exchange something online. Someone says, I want this amount of money for it. Okay? And you look at it, you do your research and the blue book value. Let's say you're buying a car and you look at the blue book value and you determine it's only worth this. So to me, subjectively, what I need, what I see, it's only worth this amount. So we are the ones as consumers that put the subjective value on it. Now, the manufacturers and the retailers and the wholesalers are basically putting what they call intrinsic value on it. So when you see the cost, you go into a store to buy something, you see the cost there, they're telling you this is the intrinsic value of that item. And there's a lot of different variables that come into play for the cost of that item. And so if you look at this, the item is valuable because of the nature of the product, the purpose of the product or the utility of the product. It can also be with what goes into the product as far as the natural materials or the materials that are used to make that product. It could be the amount of labor that goes into making that product. But what they do is they look, how much does it cost us to put this usable product together to give to the consumer? That's the intrinsic value, including all the materials, all the labor, all the transportation. That's dealing with intrinsic value. Okay? And then you get the idea of its utility. That adds to the cost. And utility deals with usefulness or satisfaction. How much use is it to me and how much satisfaction does it bring? Okay? The utility of it. You see this a lot in toys that children get at Christmas, maybe from a relative or something, and they play with it for a day, and then it loses its utility. It loses its value over a period of time, and eventually gets turned in to be used at a yard sale or sold at a yard sale. And then it gives that same usefulness or utility to another child for a certain period of time, and then it gets donated to another yard sale. All right, because it loses its utility, it loses its satisfaction over a period of time, and that happens to you. You've probably got a ton of stuff hanging in your closet right now that's lost its utility. So therefore, it doesn't have the value. You may have paid $45 for that pair of jeans that had holes in them, which I've never understood that. But you paid $45 for that pair of jeans. And you wore them for a while, and then you stop wearing them. You don't even know where they are in your closet or in your drawers, okay? So that's lost its satisfaction. That's lost its utility. You paid $45, but you're willing to sell them for $2 at a yard sale. Okay, so there's a lot of things that go into cost, and one of those is dealing with utility, usefulness, or satisfaction. And then there's another thing that goes into cost, and it's called diminishing marginal utility. So let's say here down, I'm really hungry. Okay, when I was in high school, I used to go to Wendy's after soccer practice. Before I actually went home and ate dinner. So I would get a double at Wendy's with fries and sometimes a Frosty. And I don't tell anybody that. And back then, with all the activity and everything, wasn't a problem. I could eat that much and burn it all off. It was great. Not that way anymore. So let's say I go to McDonald's or I went to Wendy's after a soccer practice, and I bought a double, and I eat it, and I'm satisfied. I'm comfortable. But then they come out and they say, we're having a special. How would you like to have a second double for $4? And I'm like, cool, second double for $4. I could eat that. I'm active. So I'll pay $4 for that. And I eat that, and now I feel kind of just overwhelmed. I've had too much, and you know how that feeling is. You eat too much, and you're just like lethargic, and you're like, you barely be able to make it out of Wendy's to get to your car. And so they come out and they say, you know what? You can have a third one now for $2. Okay? And that's what we call diminishing marginal utility. The reason is because for the first one, it's satisfying. It's useful to me. The second one is a little bit overwhelming. The third one, I don't want it all. And so I'm not willing to pay the original price for this one. I'm not even willing to pay the original price for the second one. The only reason I buy the second one is because it was reduced in cost. So the more I have been satisfied, the more the object has been used, it loses its value. Okay? And that's what diminishing marginal utility cost is. All right? So keeping going. Now, that's dealing with costs. Subjective value, intrinsic value. Economic cost, how much I'm willing to pay. And then opportunity cost, how useful it is to me. All these things go in to the cost of something. All right? So that's just dealing with this being exchanged for this. So we've talked about this, what determines this, the cost. Now we got to talk about the good, okay? And what type of goods there are. Because there's two things that you will spend money on in your life. One is goods, and the other one is services. And then now there's a new thing that we call experiences. People are paying money to experience things, like horseback riding or skydiving or whitewater rafting. Those are experiences. Some people call them services, the entertainment services, but we'll look at that a little bit in our next lesson. So you have the goods here, all right? Material things that are desired by a consumer. So a good is anything that is desired by a consumer. This is a Yeti. I got it for a gift. My children gave me this for Christmas, and so it's a great tool. I love it. I use it all the time. This is a good. But so is this. Box of tissues, partially used, probably by some of you. All right, this is a good. A tape dispenser with tape in there. All right, so these are the things that we use as goods, material things that we desire, that we're willing to exchange some of our resources for that. Now, we're going to talk about differentials of goods. So the first thing is a normal good. A normal good means during normal circumstances, status quo, everything's good, this is what I'm going to buy. And it's usually the top tier of that type of product. For instance, steak. So I'm a meat guy. I love meat, okay? Especially beef. I love beef. And so steak, yes. All right? And that's the top of the line. So if according to what this says, as my wages go up, as I increase, then I'm able to afford the normal good. But as my wages go down, okay, then I have to supplement this normal good for an inferior good. And a lot of people will use this comparison, steak to hamburger. Okay? Poor man steak is what hamburger is. All right? And I must be a poor man because I love hamburger too. So anyway, these are the two types of good. Normal good and inferior good. So if you're making more money, you'll buy the more expensive stuff. If you're making less money, okay, you will go over here and buy an inferior good. You're making really a lot of money, girls, and you go to New York City on Fifth Avenue, and you go to the Gucci store and you buy a Gucci purse. And you pay $500. But those of us who live in reality, in the real world, we go to Walmart and we buy a $15 purse. Okay? So same item, purse. One is a normal good because it's top of the line. The other one is an inferior good. Okay? And what determines which one we buy is our salary, how much money we are making. All right? Then we have a thing called substitute goods. Now, substitute goods, some people think deals with normal and inferior again. It actually doesn't. It just means I substitute this for this. And I have the example, some people drink coffee, people drink tea. Those basically are the same type of products as far as warm comfort drinks, or now everything's iced too. Okay, so you buy one of those and you can supplement. If there's no coffee, you can drink tea. You still get caffeine, not as much, but you know, that type of thing. So those are substitute goods. So can be used in place of another. Like for instance, you want some juice in the morning, you can drink orange juice. And if you don't have orange juice, you drink apple juice. They can be substituted for each other. And it fluctuates with increase of salaries or consumers, or from supply. So if coffee begins to go down, then we will switch over and go to, because coffee goes down, price goes up, the amount of coffee goes down, their supply of it goes down, cost goes up, we would switch over and start drinking tea. It's just a substitute good. It's not saying tea is better or coffee is better. That's very subjective, not intrinsic. It's subjective. And so therefore, that's what it basically turns into. So this is dealing with the idea of goods, okay? So we've talked about cost today, we've talked about goods, and in the next session, we will finish up dealing with how goods and costs go together, the law of supply and demand, and then we will get into the different types of service industries, okay? All right, so that's all for today. Thank you, God bless, and we'll see you next time.